Big time banger coming up this week, and it was hard to keep this off of our Fight of the Night screen. We have Juicy J, Julian Erosa, taking on Sting, Seung Choi. And Matt, for Seung Choi, in my mind's eye, yeah, listen, he lost a couple of fights to start his UFC tenure against really, really good competition. I mean, one, Movsar Evloev, who looked great against Hakeem Dawodu last weekend, and then to Gavin Tucker by submission in Calgary. It was a Canadian fight, Canadian fighter, all the way across the country. We have a big country. And then he beat Suman Mokhtarian. And he didn't just beat Suman Mokhtarian, he beat him while Suman smiled, and he beat him so bad. That fight was a huge mismatch, and it probably shouldn't have happened. No. But Seung Choi looked great, and he looked great his last time out against Youssef Zalal in that one. So for Seung Choi, really dynamic fighter. He can mix it in all different ways, but you know him as a really, really good technical striker, really nice high tie stance, very, very good striking defense as well. Unless you're taking on the best of the best, and then it's really hard when Tucker or you've got Movsar Evloev mixing in some of the takedowns with their striking. Seung Choi, very technical fighter. Julian Erosa, not. And why can I say that? Because at Fight Night Picks, we have a great interview this week with Julian Erosa on our own JHK MMA, and Julian says as much. He says Seung Choi is a technical fighter, but I'm a little bit unorthodox. I'm going to mix things up, and I have those weird submissions that you don't see coming, and that's what makes him dangerous. And oh, by the way, that's what's made him dangerous his last two fights. Coming back against Sean Woodson, huge underdog, getting the Darce choke win, performance of the night bonus. His last time out, flying knee knockout over Nate Landwehr early. So Juicy J is riding a wave. This is his third stint in the UFC. Just like that Billy Talent song that I sing every single week. There's nothing to lose when no one knows your name, but everybody should know Julian Erosa's name, not just because he fought an all-time fan favorite in the Polish zombie, Marcin Rotzek, but because he fought one GOAT, Artem Lobov. And while he didn't win that fight, he won the hearts of many. Julian Erosa, Seung Choi. Matt, I love this fight.
Julian Erosa, sneaky dangerous all of a sudden. Like, you're right, he's not a technical fighter, and he's not the most aesthetically pleasing fighter. Like, you're not paying to watch beautiful technique when you watch Julian Erosa. It's not like he's a Yair Rodriguez, and you're going to be like, wow, with some of his techniques. But
this is like going to a rural spot in America or Canada, and you want to see a demolition derby? Well, you're going to get Julian Erosa bringing in his Crown Vic to take on, like, I don't know, a Ferrari in Seung Choi.
Sure, I was gonna say, Julian Erosa, he's just like a farmer. He wakes up every day, goes to work. Like, he just knows what he's good at. And what Julian Erosa's good at is, and I hate to say it this way, but I do mean this as a compliment, he's great at taking punishment, accepting damage, and still moving forward. He is one of those classic fighters who, he will give one to take one, or take five to give one, I should say. But once he does finally get his range to his opponent, and gets his hands around his opponent, he's a tricky fighter. And he's the fighter who, he will pull guard, he'll shoot weird takedowns. Like, nothing he does is all that traditional when it comes to the striking or the grappling department. And just go back to the Sean Woodson fight. I know Sean Woodson, he had that close split decision to Youssef Zalal, and maybe people aren't as high on Sean Woodson as they were. But the reason people aren't as high on Sean Woodson is because Julian Erosa ate everything Sean Woodson had to offer and then choked him out at the end of the fight. It was one of those classic Julian Erosa performances. And Erosa is starting to get into that, like, Nate Diaz category where it's like, I didn't lose, I just ran out of time, because it really does feel like he either gets TKO'd, which, okay, isn't a great look, loses a one-sided decision, again, not a great look, or wins by beautiful stoppage. And that's a really fun fighter to beat, and that's a fighter who can get a lot of bonuses, and this is a fight that could generate one of those bonuses, because for Seung Choi, I always go back to the quote that Faraz Sahabi said after Woo Choi fought Gavin Tucker, and it was, that kid's gonna be really good one day. Like, we did a lot of scouting on him, he's got a really, really bright future, and if someone like Faraz Sahabi can see that potential in you, then, now, yes, I guess as of recent years, that might not be the greatest designation, but I will take his judgment and say, when a guy like that does say, wow, this guy's got a really bright future, you do have to listen. And the improvements that Seung Choi has shown since that Gavin Tucker fight have been apparent. And you bring up the technique, I just like the well-roundedness of Seung Choi at the end of the day. I like the fact that if he isn't there with a guy who's a better striker than him, he can shoot the takedown, and I'm not worried about his grappling. He's a guy who, if he's in there with a really good wrestler, he can defend some of the takedowns. Now, yes, I would say the wrestling department is one of his weaker areas, but still, the fact that Seung Choi can go out there and he at least uses wrestling as an offensive tool is a really impressive thing. So this fight for me is kind of like every other Julian Erosa fight. Can Julian Erosa withstand whatever storm Seung Choi brings into the cage? Or can Seung Choi, and I hate to say this, can he look for a way out and find a way to get submitted by Julian Erosa?
Yeah, it is a really tricky one for Julian Erosa coming out of the same camp that we're going to see Casey O'Neill out of that also fights on this card. You got a little bit of 10th Planet, you got a little bit of Extreme Couture, you mix it all together. Sometimes you get something special, and we've seen a lot of fighters. Now, for O'Neill, this is our second camp there. For Julian Erosa, he's been there for a bit. He also talked about it in the interview with JHK, that a main training partner that he had in the last year or so, and we saw him lose a fight, but that didn't matter, was Tristan Connolly. He said training with Connolly, being a bigger, thicker guy at 155-45 really helped with the conditioning, really helped with the grappling. Two guys that were in there to compete against one another, to make each other better, and that's what Julian Erosa really liked out of that. Also, both of these guys, some of the bigger guys you're going to see at featherweight, they're not slim thick, they're tall and kind of thin, but they can really use those long limbs to their advantage. You see that out of both guys, over 6 feet tall at 145 pounds. Really going to be interesting to see who has a better use of length in this fight. So for me, I look at it, the odds, Julian Erosa open to -130, he's a +112 right now. For Seung Choi, open to +110, he's now to -137. I'm eager to see the Tapology votes. We're seeing them as you see them. 731 total votes. That's a surprise. 71% Julian Erosa, 51% by decision, 27% by submission, 17% by knockout, 29% of Seung Choi, 73% by decision. Seung Choi coming out of Box Train as well as Vamos Boxing. Matt, I like the fight out of South Korea here, to Seoul. I mean, I feel like, listen, the technique's there, and as long as he can pop back up to his feet, which we've seen in his fights, I think he's gotten so much better out of his losses. I know he has much less pro experience, and normally I account for that a lot in fights, but I really do like the technique out of Seung Choi here.
I have to agree with you. I do worry a little bit if Choi is going for offensive takedowns. If he leaves his neck in a wrong position, Julian Erosa has kind of made a career out of Darce choking and guillotine guys who put their heads in wrong positions. But I do have to go with the overall well-rounded game out of Seung Choi. I do look at him as the guy who can land first in this fight. And if he does have to go to his wrestling and his grappling, I think he's going to be able to handle whatever Erosa can throw at him.
Matt, both of us going with South Korea's Seung Choi to get the win. Let us know down below in the comments section who you are going with. There's no wrong answers until, a couple of minutes after the fight's over. So, can't wait for it. Big time fights coming up. Ige taking on the Korean Zombie in the main event. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.